The storm had come fast, sweeping across the high plateaus of Vena with a howl that rattled the bones. The market square had emptied quickly, vendors scrambling to save what little they could before the sand and icy rain cut through the air. Elias Ward pulled his worn jacket tighter around his shoulders, feeling the grit against his teeth. He'd seen weather on 100 worlds, but Vena's storms always seemed crueler, like the planet itself resented life clinging to its surface. He angled toward the edge of the square, ready to find shelter in the traveler's quarter, when he saw her. She was crouched against a wall of cracked stone, her arms wrapped around a girl no older than 12. Their cloaks were nothing but rags, shredded by time and the wind. The child shivered so violently Elias feared her bones would snap. The woman lifted her face, alien yet strikingly human in its sorrow. Her skin was a pale lavender, mottled with darker streaks, and her wide, glassy eyes glowed faintly in the gloom. She clutched the girl tighter when Elias slowed his steps. "Please," she called over the storm, her voice raw. "Just one night. A blanket for her." She shifted, revealing trembling hands that pushed the girl slightly forward, as if presenting her. "She is strong. She will work. She will serve. Just give us warmth." Elias froze, anger cutting through the cold. He had seen this before on fringe worlds, desperation so sharp it carved away dignity. Mothers offering children for food, for safety, for a scrap of mercy. But the way her voice cracked when she said serve told him she hated the words. The girl didn't look at him. She pressed her face into her mother's chest, shivering. Elias crouched down, lowering his voice against the wind. "Keep your daughter." "I'm not that kind of man." The woman blinked, confused. "Then you'll not trade?" He stripped off his travel blanket, heavy and weatherproof, and draped it over both of them. The girl gasped at the sudden warmth. Elias tightened it around their shoulders. "I'll do better. Come with me. I've got a room, fire, food. No bargains. Just shelter." The woman stared at him like he'd spoken a different language. Her people, he realized, must not expect charity from humans. Finally, her lips trembled. "Why? Why help?" Elias looked at the girl, at her thin arms and hollow cheeks. He remembered the sister he'd buried during another famine, long ago on a different world. Because no one helped us when we needed it. And because she deserves better. The inn smelled of smoke and boiled grain when they stumbled inside, dripping with storm water and exhaustion. Elias paid the innkeeper extra for privacy and heat. In the small room, the woman hesitated by the door, while the girl collapsed gratefully onto the cot. Elias said about lighting the hearth, then dug through his pack for the emergency rations, hard bread, dried fruit, jerky. He softened them in a bowl of hot water before offering them. The girl ate first, hesitant then ravenous. The woman finally followed, though she ate little, watching Elias like he was a puzzle she didn't trust. When the fire warmed the walls, Elias finally turned to her. "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Kaelin." She brushed the girl's hair tenderly. "This is Elira." "Kaelin, Elira," Elias repeated, nodding. "I'm Elias. You two from the desert clans?" Her eyes narrowed, defensive. "We were, until raiders burned our tents. We fled to the city, but there is no place here for us. No work for women without men. No food unless—" She looked away, shame tightening her jaw. Elias clenched his fists. He'd heard the rumors, orphans and widows preyed upon, bartered away in the alleys of Vena. To see it with his own eyes twisted his gut. "You're safe here tonight," he said firmly. "No one touches either of you." Kaelin studied him, suspicion battling with exhaustion. At last she whispered, "And tomorrow?" Elias had no answer. He wasn't a savior, just a wandering trader, scraping a living between starports. But he knew he couldn't walk away come morning. The storm broke by dawn, leaving the city washed in silver light. Kaelin rose early, trying to gather her few belongings, but Elias stopped her. "Where will you go? Back to the alleys? Back to offering your child for scraps?" His voice was harsher than he meant. Her face crumpled, but she lifted her chin. "We have no choice. You gave us more than most. That is enough." "Not for me." Elias reached into his pack again, pulling out his trade slips, currency and goods he'd saved for his next run. He pressed them into her hands. "This will cover food and clothes. Long enough for me to find more work. Stay with me, at least until you can stand on your own." Kaelin's eyes widened at the slips. "You would share your coin with strangers?" "Not strangers," Elias corrected, glancing at Elira, who watched silently, clutching the blanket he'd given. "Family, if you'll have it." The word seemed to strike Kaelin like a blow. Her lips trembled, her hands shaking around the slips. "We cannot repay this." "You don't need to." Days turned into weeks. Elias took on extra hauls, working double shifts at the docks. Every credit he earned went to food, clothes, medicine. Elira began to smile again, her cheeks filling with color. Kaelin moved with quiet grace around the room, helping where she could, though Elias noticed she still flinched when strangers spoke too sharply or hands moved too fast. One evening, as rain tapped gently on the shutters, Kaelin sat across from him by the hearth. Elira slept nearby, bundled in fresh linens. "You should not have done this," Kaelin said softly. Elias arched a brow. "Regretting my company already?" She shook her head quickly. "No. But men do not give without expecting. Not on Vena. Not anywhere I've seen." Elias leaned back, stretching his tired muscles. "Maybe you've just been around the wrong men." Her eyes glistened in the firelight. "You could have taken her that night. No one would have stopped you. And yet you chose mercy." "Not mercy," Elias said, his voice rough. "Just the right thing." Silence hung between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Kaelin lowered her gaze, whispering, "Then perhaps we were meant to find you." Trouble came, as it always did. Raiders from the Waste slipped into the city, taking girls and women in the night. When they came to the quarter where Kaelin and Elira slept, Elias fought. He had nothing but his fists and a dull blade, but rage gave him strength. He stood bloodied in the street, body aching, when the raiders finally fled. Kaelin rushed to him, hands trembling as she pressed cloth to his wounds. "Fool," she whispered fiercely, tears streaking her face. "You'll die for us." Elias caught her hand, holding it tight despite the pain. "Then I'll die doing something that matters." She broke then, leaning into him, her forehead against his chest. "You cannot ask us to be family and then leave us alone in this world." "I wasn't planning to." By the time the rains ended and the first green shoots rose in the desert, Elias had made his choice. He sold his trader's license, bought a modest home near the market, and laid foundations not in credits, but in trust. Kaelin never offered her daughter again. Instead, she offered Elias a seat beside her at the fire, and Elira offered him a smile that, in time, began to feel like belonging. One night, as they sat watching the stars beyond the storm-battered window, Kaelin whispered the words she had once begged from strangers. "Just one night.